The 911 call, June 3rd, 2022. 12:32 in the morning, Indianapolis. Someone yelling, "He's under the car. Oh my God, he's under the car." That's what the 911 dispatcher heard. Chaos, screaming. A parking lot in Indianapolis. A woman hysterical. A man dying. And the device that led to all of it? It weighed 2 ounces. The call came from the parking lot of Tilly's Pub on East 82nd Street. When officers arrived, they found Andre Smith crushed beneath a blue Chevrolet Impala, his head wedged behind the driver's side front tire, his body completely flattened between the wheels. He was 26 years old, and he was already dead. The driver, his girlfriend, the woman who'd tracked him there using an Apple AirTag. This case would become the centerpiece of a federal lawsuit against Apple. It would force Indiana to rewrite its stalking laws, and it would expose a gap in consumer technology that millions of people still don't know exists. The jury would face an impossible question. If you'd been cheated on for 10 years, tracked him to a bar, got beaten while he held you down,
then watched him walk out with another woman,
would you have been able to stop? Because that's what they had to decide. Murder or something else entirely. To understand how we got there, you have to go back to when Gaylyn Morris was 15 years old and met the boy who would become the only man she ever loved. Gaylyn Morris and Andre Smith met when she was 15. He was her first boyfriend, her only boyfriend. For over a decade, they were on and off, breaking up and getting back together in an endless cycle that everyone around them could see was toxic. The pattern never changed. Andre would cheat. Gaylyn would find out. She'd take him back anyway. By 2022, they were living together in Indianapolis. Gaylyn paid the bills. She paid his rent. She bought his food. She gave him money when he asked for it. Andre gave nothing back except excuses and lies. The text messages between them tell the story. Threats from Gaylyn. Begging from Gaylyn. Manipulation from both sides. But mostly, it's her trying to hold on to someone who was never really there. June 2nd, 2022. Andre doesn't come home for dinner. He never showed. This wasn't new. Andre had been staying out all night for weeks. Gaylyn knew he was with other women. She'd known for years. But June 2nd was different, because this time she had a way to find him. For years, Gaylyn had relied on intuition and suspicion, checking his phone when he wasn't looking, asking his friends where he'd been, calling the mother of his child to see if she knew anything. But Andre was good at covering his tracks. He'd learned how to lie, how to deflect, how to make Gaylyn feel crazy for asking questions. Days earlier, Gaylyn had bought an Apple AirTag and hidden it in the back seat of Andre's car, near the cup holder. By the evening of June 2nd, that device was about to lead her straight to him. Gaylyn's family had been telling her to leave Andre for years. Her sister Diamond tried to talk her down constantly. Her mother didn't want to hear his name. Andre was using her. He treated her like an ATM and a maid. Gaylyn's self-esteem had been ground down to nothing. She believed this was what love looked like. She believed if she just gave him enough, he'd change. But Andre had a daughter with another woman. He was seeing multiple women at once. Gaylyn knew all of this, and she stayed anyway. June 2nd wasn't a breaking point because of new information. It was a breaking point because the humiliation was about to become public. That afternoon, Gaylyn texted Andre, "Who's Kenya Brown?" He deflected. She already knew the answer. By 11:30, she checked the AirTag. Andre was at a hotel near Castleton. She texted him, "I see you at the hotel. I'm on my way." 20 minutes before midnight, her final text to Andre, "I got something for you." Her sister Diamond tried to calm her down during a 35-minute phone call. Nothing worked. Gaylyn was already in her car, wearing pajamas, driving to find him. The AirTag led her to Tilly's pub. The day of rage, June 2nd, 2022, started like most days in Gaylyn's life. Andre wasn't home. She didn't know where he was, and she was already angry. That afternoon, she texted him, "Who's Kenya Brown?" Andre's response was evasive. He knew Gaylyn was onto him, but he didn't care enough to lie convincingly. Kenya Brown was another woman Andre had been seeing. Gaylyn had found out about her days earlier. She'd been stewing over it ever since. Now she wanted answers. Later that evening, Gaylyn checked the AirTag. The app showed Andre at a hotel near Castleton Square Mall. 20 minutes before midnight, her final text to Andre came through. "I got something for you." The prosecution would later argue that this was a threat, a promise of violence, proof that she was planning to hurt him. During those final hours, Gaylyn's sister Diamond was on the phone with her for 35 minutes. Diamond was trying to calm her down, trying to talk her out of whatever she was planning to do. It didn't work. Gaylyn was already in her car, still in her pajamas, gray shorts, a black hoodie. She didn't bother getting dressed. She didn't bother doing her hair. She just got in the car and drove. The AirTag showed Andre had moved from the hotel to Tilly's pub. Gaylyn followed. There was no plan, no strategy, just the pull of that blue dot on her phone screen. The location pin that told her exactly where to find him. She wasn't thinking about what she'd do when she got there. She wasn't thinking about consequences. She was just driving. The AirTag had become the only thing that mattered. Not the relationship, not the years of pain. Just the device in her hand showing her where Andre was. And shortly after midnight on June 3rd, 2022, it led her straight to him. But when she walked through that door, she had no idea what she was about to find. She wasn't expecting to find Kenya Brown. She found someone else. Someone who would make everything worse. Minutes past 12, Gaylyn Morris pulls into the parking lot of Tilly's pub. Witness Quinton Shields is standing outside when this woman in a pink bonnet walks up and asks, "Have you seen a guy with dreads?" He tells her he hasn't been inside yet. She walks straight in. And the woman Andre is with? It's not Kenya Brown. It's someone new. Witness Jessica Coda was sitting inside near the front window. She saw Gaylyn enter, wearing the same clothes, black hoodie and gray bike shorts. When Gaylyn spotted Andre and Tashiana Nash at a table near the bar, she didn't hesitate. Witness Morgan Lowe described it as a beeline. Gaylyn wasn't there to talk. She was there to confront. Surveillance footage from inside the bar captured what happened next. The video doesn't have audio, but you can see the body language. You can see the aggression. Gaylyn approached the table. She said something to Andre and Tashiana. We don't know exactly what. But within seconds, the situation escalated. She grabbed an empty Michelob Ultra bottle from a nearby table, picked it up by the neck, then swung it at Tashiana's head. Andre caught it mid-swing. His hand wrapped around the bottle before it could connect. He stepped between the two women, trying to physically separate them. Andre Smith died at 12:28 a.m., less than 1 minute after walking out carrying a pizza. He died from traumatic asphyxia, crushed unable to breathe. Gaylyn sat in the driver's seat, engine running, the car resting on Andre's body. She didn't move, just stared straight ahead. Molly looked up at the window, made eye contact. Gaylyn's expression was blank. Then the door opened. Gaylyn stepped out, stepped over Molly, stepped over Andre's body, and walked away. Tashiana Nash was still outside. She'd watched the whole thing from near the entrance of Tilly's. Now she pulled out her phone and started recording video. The video shows Gaylyn standing near the back of the Impala. Tashiana is walking around the car, trying to get the license plate on camera. She's yelling at Gaylyn, asking her what she just did, asking her why. Gaylyn doesn't answer. She moves to block the license plate with her body. She's bouncing on the car door, trying to obstruct the camera. Gaylyn doesn't answer. She moves to block the license plate with her body. She's bouncing on the car door, trying to obstruct the camera. Tashiana yelled back at her, "I already got it on my phone, bitch." The license plate is visible in the video. GER 330, registered to Gaylyn Morris. The video also shows Gaylyn's face. Clear, unmistakable. She's looking directly at the camera. 5 minutes later, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police officers arrived on scene. They found Andre Smith's body still under the car. They found Gaylyn Morris standing in the parking lot. They detained her immediately. She didn't resist, didn't run, just stood there while they put her in handcuffs. Minutes later, the parking lot of Tilly's pub had transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape cordoned off the area. Patrol officers were taking witness statements. The coroner was on the way, and Detective Gregory Shue was beginning to piece together what had happened. But he didn't need to rely solely on witness testimony, because everything Gaylyn Morris had done that night, every call, every text, every location check, had left a digital fingerprint.
The investigation would become a timeline.
Minute by minute, ping by ping. A complete reconstruction of the hours leading up to Andre Smith's death. Gaylyn stood in handcuffs. Andre was dead. The case seemed open and shut. But the digital evidence detectives were about to pull would reveal something that would change everything about how this case was prosecuted. And it all came down to one small device. Detective Gregory Shue arrived at the scene shortly after the murder. By then, Andre Smith's body had been photographed from every angle. The blue Impala was still sitting on top of him. They couldn't move it until the coroner arrived. Shue walked the scene, talked to witnesses, collected phone numbers. Then he went to the IMPD homicide office to wait for Gaylyn Morris. She arrived in handcuffs an hour later. Every text, every call, every time she checked that AirTag, the detectives had it all. Because everything Gaylyn Morris did that night left a trail. Text messages, voice recordings, GPS data, surveillance footage, phone calls, Facebook Messenger logs. Start with the phone records. Detective Shue obtained a warrant for Gaylyn's cell phone, an Apple iPhone in a white case. The call log showed 47 outgoing calls to Andre Smith in the 2 hours leading up to midnight on June 2nd. Most went unanswered. A few lasted only seconds before Andre hung up. But one call stood out. Earlier that evening, there was a 47-second conversation. Immediately after it ended, Andre texted Gaylyn, "You better not, or I'm calling the police." What did she say during those 47 seconds that made him threaten to call the cops? We'll never know. But it was serious enough to scare him. Then there were the text messages. 52 pages of them. The exchanges from the week leading up to June 3rd showed the pattern they'd been trapped in for years. The Facebook Messenger logs were even more damning. The voice messages she'd sent to Kenya Brown hours before the murder were time-stamped, geotagged, stored on Facebook servers. Detectives played them in the interview room, played them again at trial. But the most critical piece of digital evidence was the AirTag itself. The next morning, Detective Shue executed a search warrant on Gaylyn's car at the Animal Control impound lot. Crime scene technician Chris Schendel photographed the interior, collected DNA swabs from the transmission pan, measured the clearance under the vehicle. They found the shirt Gaylyn was wearing in the surveillance video. They found the Michelob Ultra bottle, and they found the box for the Apple AirTag. But the AirTag itself wasn't in Gaylyn's car. It was still in Andre's car, right where she'd hidden it, in the back seat near the cup holder. Detectives retrieved it, photographed it, logged it into evidence. Then they did something else. They pulled the data. Apple AirTags don't store location history on the device itself, but they do sync with the owner's iCloud account. And Gaylyn's iCloud account showed every ping, every location update, every time she opened the Find My app to check where Andre was. The logs showed exactly when she checked his location and followed him to Tilly's pub. The prosecution would argue this proved premeditation,
That Gaylyn used the AirTag to stalk Andre.
that she tracked him down with the intent to confront him, that everything that happened in that parking lot was the culmination of a plan. The defense would argue the opposite, that the AirTag just showed where Andre was, that Gaylyn went there to confront him, not kill him, that what happened was a crime of passion, not murder. But the digital evidence didn't lie. It showed exactly what Gaylyn did, when she did it, and how she did it. By the time Detective Shue finished reviewing the phone records, text logs, and AirTag data, he had a complete picture of June 2nd. He knew when Gaylyn bought the AirTag, when she placed it in Andre's car, when she checked his location, when she drove to Tilly's. He had the voice messages, the surveillance footage, the witness statements. Now he needed to hear Gaylyn's version. 12 hours after Andre Smith died, Gaylyn Morris sat across from Detective Shue in an interview room. She'd been awake all night, still wearing the same clothes from the parking lot. Her pink bonnet was gone, but her face showed the exhaustion. Shue turned on the recorder, read her rights, and asked her to explain what happened. What Gaylyn said next would become the foundation of her defense and the prosecution's strongest rebuttal. 12 hours after Andre Smith died in that parking lot, Detective Gregory Shue sat across from Gaylyn Morris in the IMPD Homicide Office interview room. Detective Gary Toms was there too. The camera was recording. Shue read Gaylyn her Miranda rights. She waived them, said she'd talk. The interview lasted nearly an hour, and in that time, Gaylyn Morris told a story that didn't match the evidence. She explained the relationship. They lived together. Andre had been staying out all night lately. She figured he was with other women. Shue asked her about June 2nd. What happened that day? She hadn't seen Andre at all. They'd talked on the phone. She confronted him about a woman she thought he was seeing, told him to pack his things and leave. Then she talked to the mother of Andre's child. The women told her she should just kick Andre out, be done with the relationship. So far, This matched what detectives already knew. But then Gaylyn's story started to fall apart. Shu asked her how she found Andre at Tilly's pub. Gaylyn said she was just driving around. Said she remembered Andre would sometimes get a hotel room at the Sheraton near Castleton to be by himself or with other women. She was driving past and saw his car at Tilly's.
Just happened to see it. Pure coincidence.
Shu didn't push back yet. He let her keep talking. Gaylyn said she parked her car and went inside. Saw Andre with another woman. Started a conversation with them. Said the woman got aggressive with her. So she grabbed a beer bottle to defend herself. Then they started fighting. Andre broke it up, pushed her outside. The owner told all of them to leave. Shu asked what happened next. Gaylyn said she went to her car and waited for Andre and the other woman to come out. Said her intention was to hit the other woman with her car, not Andre. She admitted it, said it out loud, that she was planning to run someone over, just not him. She said Andre and the woman were both trying to run away, that she hit Andre by accident, that she didn't mean for him to go under the car. Shu asked about the AirTag. Gaylyn denied it at first, said she didn't have a tracker, never put one in Andre's car. Detective Toms leaned forward, asked her directly, "If we serve a search warrant on your car, will we find evidence of a tracker?" Gaylyn paused. Then she changed her story. "Okay, yes, she had an AirTag. She put it in the back seat of Andre's car, near the cup holder." Shu asked when she put it there. Gaylyn didn't give a specific date, just said it was recent. Shu asked if she used it to track Andre to Tilly's. Gaylyn admitted she did. Said she checked the app. Saw he was at a hotel. Then saw he moved to Tilly's. So she drove there. The story about just happening to see his car, that was a lie. Shu asked about the impacts. How many times did she hit Andre? Gaylyn said once, maybe twice. She wasn't sure. Everything happened so fast. The witnesses said otherwise. Shu asked why she didn't move the car when people were screaming that Andre was underneath it. Gaylyn said she didn't know he was under there. Said she thought he'd gotten out of the way. But Molly Woody, the nurse, had been on the ground next to the car, had made eye contact with Gaylyn through the window, had yelled at her not to move. Gaylyn said she didn't hear her, didn't see her. When the interview ended, Gaylyn was booked into the Marion County Jail on a preliminary charge of murder. Over the next 14 months, the case moved through the legal system. Grand jury indictment, pre-trial motions, discovery, witness prep. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office formally charged Gaylyn Morris with murder. Her defense team filed a motion arguing for voluntary manslaughter based on sudden heat. The judge denied the motion. The question of sudden heat would go to the jury. And in August 2023, more than a year after Andre Smith's death, 12 people would be asked to decide. Did Gaylyn Morris commit murder? Or did she act under such intense emotional disturbance that her crime should be reduced to manslaughter? But the jury would face an impossible question. Would you have been able to stop? August 2023. More than a year after Andre Smith's death, Marion County Superior Court. The trial of Gaylyn Morris began on a Tuesday morning. The courtroom was packed. Andre's family sat on one side, Gaylyn's family on the other. The media filled the back rows. Prosecutor Terrence Starp stood to deliver opening statements. His argument was straightforward. This was murder, premeditated, deliberate, calculated. Gaylyn Morris didn't just track Andre Smith with that AirTag, Tharp said. She hunted him. She found him. She threatened him. And then she executed a plan. Tharp walked the jury through the timeline. The voice messages to Kenya Brown. The texts to Andre. The AirTag pings showing his location. The final text at 11:52 p.m. I got something for you. He played the audio recordings. Her voice was calm but seething with rage. Tharp let the silence hang after the recordings ended. That's not a woman acting in sudden heat, Tharp said. That's a woman who had hours to think about what she was going to do. Hours to cool down. Hours to make a different choice. He showed the AirTag pings. The hotel at 11:32 p.m. Tilly's pub at 11:58 p.m. Each location marked with a timestamp. Tharp let the silence hang after the recordings ended. She tracked him. She followed him. She texted him, I'm on my way. That's intent. That's planning. Then he showed the surveillance footage from inside Tilly's. Showed her grabbing the beer bottle. Showed her getting kicked out. And here's what matters most, Tharp said. He advanced the video to the parking lot footage. Watch the timestamp. Tharp let the silence hang after the recordings ended. The screen showed Gaylyn's car parked near the Metro diner. The timestamp read 12:24. She sits there, engine running, watching the door, waiting for him to come out. He let the video play. The car didn't move, just sat there in the darkness. That's not sudden heat. That's premeditation. That's her sitting there, thinking about what she's going to do, deciding to do it. The video showed Andre walking out at 12:27, carrying the pizza box. Then the car lurched forward. She didn't hit him once in panic, Tharp said. She hit him. Then she backed over him. Then she hit him again. 3 separate impacts. 3 separate decisions. That's not an accident. That's murder. The prosecution's case rested on one key principle. Premeditation doesn't require days of planning. It can happen in seconds. As long as there's time to think, it's murder. And Gaylyn had hours. Then the defense stood up. Max Wiley had a different story. This wasn't murder. This was a woman pushed to her breaking point by a man who used her, manipulated her, and humiliated her for over a decade. Gaylyn Morris was in an abusive relationship, Wiley said. Not the kind where he hit her, the kind where he destroyed her self-esteem. And on June 2nd, she finally snapped. The defense wasn't denying what happened. Gaylyn ran over Andre. She killed him. But the question was why? When Gaylyn went to that bar, Wiley said, she wasn't planning to kill anyone. She was planning to confront her boyfriend, to confront the woman he was cheating with. And when she got there, she found someone new. Another woman. More humiliation. Then Wiley played the surveillance video from inside Tilly's. But he played it differently than the prosecution had. Watch this carefully, he said. The prosecution showed you her grabbing that bottle, but watch what happens before that. The footage played. Gaylyn walked up to the table, started talking. Then Tashiana stood up. Now watch, Wiley said. Tashiana's fist connected with Gaylyn's face. Once, twice, 3 times. Andre was holding Gaylyn's arms. She couldn't defend herself. She's getting beaten, Wiley said, while her boyfriend holds her down. Then she's physically shoved out of the bar, humiliated in front of everyone. He paused the video on a frame showing Gaylyn's face. You could see the impact, the shock. The prosecution wants to talk about those 3 minutes in the parking lot, Wiley continued. They want you to think she was sitting there calmly planning murder. She just got assaulted by a woman she'd never met, a woman her boyfriend was cheating with. And then she watches him walk out carrying food for that woman after 10 years of paying his bills, cooking his meals, begging him to come home. The prosecution says she had time to cool down. She was beaten, humiliated, and watching the man she loves walk away with someone else. There was no cooling down. The defense argument was clear. Gaylyn acted under sudden heat. She wasn't thinking clearly. She wasn't capable of rational thought. She was consumed by rage and humiliation. If she'd planned to kill him, Wiley asked, why didn't she bring a gun? There was one at their house. If this was premeditated murder, why did she show up in her pajamas? Why did she confront him in a crowded bar where everyone could see her face? Because she wasn't planning to kill anyone. She was planning to confront him. And what happened in that parking lot wasn't a plan. It was an explosion. But here's where the law gets complicated, and where you, the jury, have to make the call. Indiana law defines sudden heat as acting under such intense emotion that an ordinary person would lose the ability to think rationally. Not just any person, an ordinary person. So the question the jury had to answer wasn't, did Gaylyn Morris lose control? The question was, would you have lost control? If you, sitting in Gaylyn's shoes, had been cheated on for 10 years, tracked your boyfriend to a bar, confronted him with another woman, gotten punched in the face while he held you down, then watched him walk out carrying food for that woman, would you have been capable of rational thought? That's the test, the ordinary person test. If the answer is yes, if you believe an ordinary person could have stopped and fought it through, then it's murder. If the answer is no, if you believe an ordinary person would have snapped, then it's manslaughter. The answer to that question would determine if Gaylyn Morris spent the rest of her life in prison. 3 days, 12 witnesses. Both sides rested. Judge Broadwell gave the jury their instructions, explained the legal definitions of murder and voluntary manslaughter, explained sudden heat, explained reasonable doubt. August 17th, 2023. Just after noon, the jury began deliberating. The courtroom emptied. Gaylyn sat in a holding cell, waiting to learn her fate. Murder or manslaughter? That was the question the jury had to answer. The difference between those two verdicts was measured in decades. Less than 4 hours later, the bailiff's phone buzzed. The jury had reached a verdict. The word spread instantly. Attorneys rushed back to the courtroom. Families were summoned from the waiting rooms. Media crews scrambled to get their cameras ready. Gaylyn was brought back in. She was wearing the same clothes she'd worn throughout the trial. A simple blouse, dark pants, her hair pulled back. Her face was blank, unreadable. She sat down at the defense table. Max Wiley leaned over and whispered something to her. She nodded, but didn't respond. Her hands were shaking. 3 hours and 47 minutes in that holding cell, running through every possible outcome, every scenario, every version of her future. Murder meant 45 to 65 years. She'd be in her 70s before she got out. Her entire life spent behind bars. Manslaughter meant 10 to 30. Still prison, still years, but survivable. Across the courtroom, Lucretia Sanders took her seat in the front row. Her hands were clasped together so tightly, her knuckles had gone white. She was praying, begging God for justice for her son. The jury filed in. 12 faces.
None of them looked at Gaylyn.
That's usually a bad sign for the defense. But in this case, it was hard to tell what it meant. Judge Marshall Dawkins Broadwell entered. Everyone stood, then sat. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled. People standing in the back. The air was thick with tension. You could hear breathing, the creak of wooden benches, someone's phone vibrating on silent. Her voice cut through the silence. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson stood. A middle-aged woman in a cardigan.
She was holding a single piece of paper.
We have, Your Honor. The bailiff walked to the jury box, took the verdict form, walked it to the bench. Each footstep echoed in the silent courtroom. Judge Broadwell unfolded it, read it silently. Gaylyn's mouth was dry. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She watched the judge's face, tried to read it, couldn't. She looked up from the verdict form, looked at the jury, then at Gaylyn. The silence stretched. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. If you were on that jury, cheated on for a decade, beaten in a bar, watching him walk away with someone else, could you have stopped? Then she read it aloud. In the matter of the state of Indiana versus Gaylyn Morris, on the charge of murder, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of the lesser included offense of voluntary manslaughter. The words hung in the air. Not murder, manslaughter. Gaylyn exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Her shoulders dropped. Her hands unclenched. She felt her attorney's hand on her arm, squeezing gently. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate, just closed her eyes for a moment. Relief. That's what she felt first. Not happiness, not vindication, just relief that it wasn't murder, that her life wasn't completely over. But then the shame hit. Andre was still dead. She'd still killed him. She'd still crushed him under her car while he begged for air. Nothing about this verdict changed that. When she opened her eyes, she looked across the courtroom. Lucretia Sanders was standing. Her face was contorted with rage and grief. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. She was shaking her head. No, no, no. Her son was dead, and the woman who killed him had just been convicted of a lesser charge. This is bullshit, someone yelled from Andre's side of the courtroom. The judge banged her gavel. Gaylyn looked away. She couldn't bear to see the pain on Lucretia's face, the anger, the betrayal. It wasn't murder. Their daughter wasn't going to die in prison. The courtroom was in chaos now. People were standing, talking, crying. Judge Broadwell was banging her gavel, trying to restore order. Prosecutor Terrence Tharp stood immediately. His face was tight, controlled, but you could see the frustration as he addressed the bench. Your Honor, the state requests to poll the jury. She nodded. One by one, each juror was asked the same question. Is this your verdict? Juror number 1, yes. Juror number 2, yes. Juror number 3, yes. All 12 said yes. The verdict was unanimous. The jury had found sudden heat. They determined that Gaylyn acted in a state of rage so intense it obscured her ability to think rationally. That the provocation, the cheating, the humiliation, the assault at the bar, was severe enough that an ordinary person might have reacted the same way. Not that it excused what she did, but that it reduced the crime from murder to manslaughter. The legal difference is massive. Murder in Indiana, 45 to 65 years in prison. Voluntary manslaughter, 10 to 30 years, with an advisory sentence of 17.5 years. The jury's decision had just cut Gaylyn's potential sentence in half.
Maybe more.
Judge Broadwell dismissed the jury, thanked them for their service. They filed out, looking exhausted, relieved it was over. She set a sentencing date, September 21st, 2023, 1 month away. Then she adjourned. Gaylyn was let out of the courtroom in handcuffs. She glanced back one more time at her family, mouthed, "I love you," then disappeared through the door. Outside the courthouse, the attorneys gave statements to the press. Max Wiley, the defense attorney, spoke first. He was measured, careful, but there was satisfaction in his voice. The jury understood that what Gaylyn did was wrong, but they also understood that she was pushed to that point by years of emotional abuse. This wasn't a cold-blooded killing. This was a woman who snapped. Then Lucretia Sanders stepped up to the microphones. Her voice was shaking with emotion, raw, unfiltered.
The verdict was unacceptable.
She took away my son. I will never see him again. I will never hear his voice again. But her family can hear hers. She paused, tried to compose herself, couldn't.
I've lost my job. I've lost my house. I've lost my mind over this.
My whole family is struggling because of her. And she gets voluntary manslaughter? That's not justice. The media asked follow-up questions. Sanders answered a few, then broke down completely and walked away. The trial was over, but the case wasn't finished yet, because in 1 month, Judge Broadwell would decide how many years Gaylyn Morris would actually serve, based on aggravating and mitigating factors. Would she consider the brutality of Andre's death, the 3 impacts, the suffering, the way he was crushed under that car? Or would she consider Gaylyn's lack of criminal history, the abuse she'd endured, the sudden heat that the jury had found? For Lucretia Sanders and her family, that month felt like an eternity. They'd waited over a year for justice. Now, they'd have to wait longer to find out if the sentence would reflect the severity of what Gaylyn Morris had done. For Gaylyn, that month was spent in the Marion County Jail, waiting to learn how many years of her life she'd spend in prison. The verdict was in, but the final judgment was still to come. Indiana law gave Judge Broadwell wide discretion. The sentencing range for voluntary manslaughter was 10 to 30 years, with an advisory sentence of 17.5 years. The judge could consider aggravating factors, the brutality of the crime, the suffering Andre endured, and mitigating factors, Gaylyn's lack of criminal history, the abuse she'd suffered, her remorse. The prosecution wanted the maximum. The defense wanted leniency. And on September 21st, 2023, exactly 1 month after the verdict, everyone returned to the courtroom for the final time. September 21st, 2023, Marion County Superior Court, the same courtroom where Gaylyn Morris had been convicted 1 month earlier. This time, the proceeding was shorter, more focused. This was about one thing, the sentence.
Judge Marshall Dawkins Broadwell sat at the bench.
She'd reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report, read the letters submitted by both families, considered the arguments from both sides. Lucretia Sanders was given the opportunity to speak first. She stood at the podium, facing the judge. Her voice was steady, but the pain was evident as she began. My son did not deserve to be murdered. I will never see him again. I will never hear his voice again. But her family can hear hers. I miss my baby, and my family has been through so much. She described the toll Andre's death had taken on her life. She'd lost her job because she couldn't focus, couldn't function. She'd lost her house because she couldn't pay the bills. Her mental health had deteriorated to the point where she needed regular counseling. She continued, I'm seeing a mental counselor because of what she did. My whole family now is struggling because of her. She talked about him as a son, as a father to his young daughter, as someone who was raised never to hit women, someone who tried to de-escalate the situation at Tilly's, someone who didn't deserve to die in a parking lot at 26 years old. I don't know what happened that night because I was not there. All I do know is that my son did not deserve to be murdered. Then it was Gaylyn's turn to speak. She stood slowly, faced the bench. Her voice was quiet but clear as she began. I'm so sorry for the hurt and pain I caused. I understand that this is a tragic situation for everyone that sits in this courtroom, and I'm so sorry that I caused it. She paused, took a breath, then continued. If I could turn back the hands of time, I would, and it would be handled differently, so differently. I'm praying for their strength, healing, and recovery. Once again, I'm so sorry to his family. I'm very sorry. I apologize. The judge listened to both statements. Then she addressed the court. She acknowledged that the jury had found sudden heat, that the conviction was for voluntary manslaughter, not murder. But she also emphasized the manner of Andre's death. She addressed the courtroom. The manner in which the victim was killed was extremely aggravating. The victim was not only struck multiple times, he suffered prior to his death when being crushed under the vehicle. She noted that Gaylyn had continued to sit on top of his body while he was under the car, unable to breathe. She continued, I find the manner of his death and the knowing harm that was caused to the victim to be extremely, extremely aggravating. She also considered mitigating factors. Gaylyn's lack of significant criminal history, the struggles she'd faced in her relationship with Andre, the likelihood that she would not commit another crime of this magnitude. Then she announced the sentence. 18 years in the Indiana Department of Correction. Gaylyn would receive credit for 635 days already served, 476 actual days, plus 159 earned credit days. The sentence was final. Gaylyn was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. Andre's family left through one exit, her family through another. The media dispersed to file their stories. The case was over. The legal process complete. Justice, whatever that means in a case like this, had been served. But the story doesn't end with a sentence. Because while Gaylyn will spend the next 18 years in prison, the technology that helped her track down Andre is still out there, still being sold, still being used. And this case has become something bigger than just one woman's crime of passion. Gaylyn is in prison now. Andre is dead. The case is closed. But the story doesn't end there. This case is now cited in a federal class action lawsuit against Apple. Since their 2021 launch, Dozens of cases have emerged of AirTags being weaponized by stalkers and abusers to track victims without consent. Apple added anti-stalking features, alerts when an unknown AirTag travels with you, beeping after 8 hours. But the safeguards have gaps. Android users need a separate app. The alerts don't work if you don't have your phone, and the beeping can be muffled or disabled. Indiana passed a law in 2023 making it illegal to track someone without consent. Enforcement is difficult. By the time police get involved, the damage is often done. Protect yourself. Check your car regularly for devices hidden in wheel wells or bumpers. Pay attention to iPhone alerts. If someone knows where you are when they shouldn't, trust your instincts. Technology designed to help us find our keys became a tool for surveillance and violence. Andre knew about the AirTag. He texted her it was weird as fuck, but he didn't remove it. Maybe he didn't think it mattered. He was wrong. On June 3rd, 2022, at 12:32 in the morning, a 911 dispatcher heard screaming from a parking lot in Indianapolis. Andre died that night beneath a blue Chevrolet Impala. 26 years old. His daughter will grow up without a father. His mother will never hear his voice again. Gaylyn is in prison now, 18 years. She'll be 45 when she gets out. The device she used to track him down, it's sitting in an evidence locker somewhere, tagged, cataloged. A 2-ounce piece of technology that led to murder. Apple still sells AirTags. $29. Available at any store. And somewhere tonight, someone is opening that box, activating that device, placing it where it doesn't belong. Check your car. Check your bag. Check your life. Because if you suspect you're being tracked, you probably are. The device that killed Andre weighs 2 ounces. The consequences weigh a lifetime.